And good evening, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to another episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. I'm your host, as always, Tony Defio. And I thank you for joining me on this lovely, Friday evening in Pittsburgh. And hopefully it's a lovely Friday evening wherever you are, if you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook. And if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, then you know we have live shows each and every night, including this show, The Hangover, the Scobro Show, the Steelers Preview, Steelers Post Game, Know Your Enemy, Touchdown Under. And you probably already know, if you're watching us live on YouTube or Facebook, that if you can't watch us live, then you can certainly catch us on any audio platform of your choosing. And appear to be having some technical difficulties. Hopefully there we go. You can catch us in any audio platform after the fact. We have two parts. Sorry, I'm flustered by the technical difficulties. We have two parts. And we always ask you to please download parts 1 and 2. It helps with growing our platform. And of course, we also have a family of audio-only shows that we record, and then we publish them for you after the fact, and you can catch them on any audio platform, including the Live Mic, Let's Ride, From the Cutting Room Floor, What You's Talking About, the Stat Geek, the War Room. The list goes on and on. We are probably the fastest growing Steelers podcasting platform on the internet. If we're not, I would love to see who is. So please check us out. And of course, as always, check out Behind the Curtain, the website. We bring you news, commentary, film breakdown. As we like to say, we are your one-stop shop for all your Steelers needs. And I would like to apologize for being a little bit late tonight. I went to a holiday gathering and I got stuck in Parkway traffic. So I'm about 30 minutes late, but that's okay. Better late than never, right? And welcome to the live chat to everybody. Let's see who was number one tonight. And Brian Brown. What an upset. Brian Brown was number one tonight. And welcome to the show, Brian. And Ryan O'Toole, Micah, Kathy Ford, John, Ryan Jeffords, Ivor, Wilfred, George Teston, Claire Washington, Ryan O'Toole. And I think that's it for now. And I thank you all for joining me on this lovely, even though it's raining out, but it's relatively warm for December, Friday night, 1 week before Christmas Eve. Can you believe that? Where did 2021 go? So what are we talking about tonight? We're talking about our Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, and we're talking about their chances of making the playoffs. And as hard as it is to believe, after the 1-3-1 in their last 5 games, despite that pretty futile streak, they are still very much alive and well in the AFC playoff race. And it might not seem that way because they're in 11th place, but they really are. At 6-1, they are alive and well. And with a month to go in the regular season, I think they have just as good a chance as anybody else in fighting for the playoffs, of making the postseason. And really, even though they're in last place in the AFC North, they have just as good a chance as anybody else of winning the division. And who would have thought that? If you would have told me at the beginning of the year that they would be 6-1 with 1 month to go, I would say maybe they're fighting for a wild card spot, but most likely they're out of it. And yet they're not out of it. They're very much alive. You got teams like the Broncos, the Bengals, the Browns, the Raiders, the Colts, the Bills. They're all 7-6 or 6-7, and the Steelers are 6-1. The Chargers are 8-6. The Ravens are 8-5. I mean, even the really good teams like the Titans, who Pittsburgh's going to play this week, and the Patriots, who are on a bit of a roll. I think they're 10-4, 9-4. they're all bunched together so closely that really it would not shock me at all, despite I think they have like a 0.05 or 0.50 chance of making the playoffs percentages. But come on, if they win this week and the Bengals lose, and the Bengals are playing, who are they playing? They're playing the Broncos, who are 7-6, as I said earlier. So if somebody's going to lose that game, the Browns are 7-6, the Raiders are 6-7. They play each other. Somebody's going to lose that game. The Ravens are playing a very good Packers team, maybe the best team in the NFC, and the Ravens have been struggling. Lamar Jackson's hurt with an ankle injury, and even when he's in there, they're not exactly world beaters. So if Pittsburgh wins this week, and even if two of the teams in the AFC North lose, which you can certainly see the Ravens and the Bengals losing, then that puts them in much better shape with 3 more games left in the season. And really, no matter who loses between the Broncos and Bengals, or the Browns and the Raiders, if the Steelers find a way to beat the Titans, which is going to be a tall order, then it's going to, it should help boost their playoff percentages and their playoff chances. So I can't believe I'm saying this. The way the Steelers have been playing, the way they've looked on offense all year. I mean, they've looked pretty pathetic all year on offense. And the way they've looked as of late on defense, especially against the run, I can't believe that Pittsburgh is still alive for the playoffs. And I just don't want to hear anything about tanking. And besides, you're 6-1 with 4 games left. Can you really tank at this point? Even if you lose your last 4 games, if you're Pittsburgh, how much, like, what kind of draft pick can you get with a 6-10-1 record? Maybe the top 10, but it doesn't guarantee anything. And we're all diehard. If you're watching right now, if you're on this in the live chat, if you're watching me, if you're not even participating in the live chat, you're a diehard fan. Do you really, in your heart of hearts, want the Steelers to tank it, to lose out and get a better draft pick? Or do you want them to try to make the playoffs? Because to me, there's quite nothing like an NFL playoff game. And regardless of how mediocre they might be when they get it, you dream the impossible. You dream the impossible. And to me, Pittsburgh's in it right now, so they might as well try and go for it. They might as well try and do whatever they can. If you look at the schedules, a lot of the teams that they're battling, the Colts play the Patriots this week. Go Patriots, right? Who would have thought that? The Bills, they play Carolina, which, you would have to favor the Bills there, but they also have at least one more date with the Patriots down the stretch. I guess one more date. So you look at the Ravens, and they play the Packers, they play the Rams, they play the Bengals, they play the Steelers. So, the Ravens are in first place right now by what? I guess 1 game. And they have, down the stretch, they have the toughest schedule. And isn't that interesting? Because, at the beginning of the year, everybody talked about how tough Pittsburgh's schedule was and how they had the toughest schedule in the league. Well, now here we are with 1 month to go, and all bets are off as far as that is concerned. And the Ravens have the toughest schedule in the division, if you ask me. So, the Packers are the Packers. The Rams are one of the best teams in the NFL, even though they've been struggling a little bit as of late. The Bengals blew out the Ravens in Baltimore not that long ago. And, of course, Pittsburgh always matches up well with the Ravens, and they just beat them at Heinz Field not even 2 weeks ago. So, the Ravens might be in first place, but they're by no means a lock to win the division with 1 month to go. So they have problems. They have problems in their secondary. Lamar Jackson still hasn't fully developed into a top-tier passing quarterback, even though he's a great weapon. they have problems with their line. Big Al Villanueva is not exactly making Steelers fans regret losing him. So, they have some problems. So, and of course the Bengals, I mean, they look like they were, after they beat up on Pittsburgh a few weeks ago, they look like they were the team to beat in the division, and they haven't won since. And the Browns, they beat the Ravens last week, but they didn't look that great doing it. And now they're dealing with all kind of COVID problems. The game with the Raiders, I think it's Monday night now, so instead of Saturday. But even if they were 100% healthy, the Browns, do you really have confidence in them moving forward, being a top contender in the AFC? I certainly don't. So the Browns may have caught a break a bit with having their game postponed for a couple of days so they can get some of their players back. But let's be real. The Browns are no bargain as far as a true contender. And not that the Steelers are, but again, this is really about the Steelers having a chance to make the playoffs. And I think it would be great for them to make the playoffs in Ben's last year. And I think we're all accurately assuming that this is his last month. He's not coming back. When you start hearing rumors that he's come out to his teammates and told them that this is his last year, I think we can pretty much take that to the bank. I really don't see him having a change of heart. What would cause him to have a change of heart at this point? He's going to be 40 years old on March 2nd. It's time for him to go. But it doesn't mean, if you see how much he cares and how emotional he is and how angry he got last week in that Vikings debacle, and how emotional he got, with wins against the Ravens and the Browns earlier in the year, Ben still cares. So I think he still wants to try to make the playoffs. So to repeat, you might as well try and go for it. So I'm all in as far as them trying to make the playoffs. Division title, wild card. At this point, I really don't care. Obviously, I would love to have them win the division. Get one last home game here, at least one last home game with Ben as your starting quarterback. But however they get in at this point, I just want them to get in. The AFC is pretty wide open. I'm not saying that they're in the same class as the Chiefs or even the Patriots at this point. But by and large, the AFC is as wide open as I've seen it in maybe 30 years. I mean, if you go back and you look at the Patriots and the Titans and even the Chiefs, who are on a roll, the top seed in the AFC might have 6 losses by the end of the year, or even 7. I mean, that's just how I hate to say the word mediocre, but mediocre is probably a good word to say for the AFC this year. It's just not usually by this point in the season, the top seeds in each conference are head and shoulders above everybody else in the win-loss column. But this year, at least in the AFC, that's just not the case. Even the Ravens, who are scuffling as of late, and they've lost 2 straight division games, at 8-5, if they get on a roll, they can wind up with the number 1 seed at 12-5 if they win out. So that's pretty unusual for the NFL over the last few decades. So it's a wide open conference, and the Steelers by no means are a great team. And by no means do I see them winning out because they have a date with the Chiefs. But I could certainly envision a scenario where they win 3 out of 4. If they can steal a win against the Titans, which is very much, I think, very possible. The Titans are really good. But not only are they without Derrick Henry, but they've been scuffling too. And they're certainly not a dominant team. So I could see them stealing a win against the Titans. The Chiefs, no, I don't see it. But then you close out with the Browns at home and the Ravens on the road, and I don't care where those games are played, they're going to be close. So I can certainly envision a scenario in which Pittsburgh wins 3 out of 4, even by default. And 9-7-1 with the way the AFC looks right now as far as the standings are concerned, and who's in the hunt for the playoffs, and so many of these teams are playing each other. I can certainly see 9-7-1 being good enough to get one of the last wild card spots, if not win the division, because I mentioned earlier how tough the Ravens' schedule is. So, yeah, I would love to see Pittsburgh get into the playoffs, and if for nothing else, just to have that one more week where you can dream about moments that last forever. Because I mean, that's where the playoffs are different from the regular season. I mean, there are a lot of great regular season games, but not too many people talk about where they were when Big Ben threw 6 touchdown passes in back-to-back games. But we do talk about where we were when Troy Polamalu had his pick 6. We talk about where we were when Vontaze Perfect went nuts and Pac-Man Jones soon followed a few years ago. We talk about where we were when Gary Anderson beat the Oilers in overtime, and that was, 32 years ago? So, there's something about the playoffs that just, to me, are so special. And I think the NFL playoffs it's the best tournament in all of sports. And there's nothing quite like a one and done, winner go home NFL playoff game. And if for nothing, obviously you want to see them win, but just the anticipation of it. I would just love to see Pittsburgh in that position this year. Big Ben, I would love to see him have one final shot at the postseason. And certainly I would love to see him have a chance to go out much better than he did last year against the Browns in the wild card game in Heinz Field. It was a disaster, and to have him go out like that in the postseason in tears, it just didn't seem right. So, if nothing else, I like to see them band together for Ben. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. I don't know. They certainly don't have. They don't seem like that kind of team this year where they're unified and they're all pulling the same rope and they all have the same goal in mind. It seems to be a bit of a splintered team, a splintered locker room, as Brian and Shannon and I talked about on Monday on The Hangover. But who knows? I mean, momentum is a funny thing, and when a team gets on a roll, it can happen just like that. So we shall see. And on that note, I've rambled on long enough, and at the 19-minute mark, I will take this time to say goodbye to part 1 of this episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. And when I come back in the second half, since we're on a bye, or not a bye, but an extended 10-game break for the Steelers, and they didn't have any games since the last time I talked to you, I'll open things up to questions and comments in the second half of tonight's show. So if you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, don't go anywhere, because I'll be right back. And if you're listening on an audio platform, well, of course, I thank you for downloading part 1. But please come back and download part 2 of this episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. And welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to part 2 of this episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. I'm your host, as always, Tony Defio. And if you are watching live on YouTube or Facebook and you tuned into the first half of tonight's show. I thank you for sticking with me and coming back for part 2. And if you were listening to part 1 on any audio platform of your choosing, well, I certainly thank you for that. And I thank you for sticking around and downloading part 2. So let's see what we have here in the live chat as far as questions. And this one's from Brian Brown. It's a comment. And he says, well, when TJ Watt is playing healthy, the Steelers do a lot better. They certainly do. He is their franchise now. And word out of practice on Friday was that Watt was a participant. And according to him, he's ready to go for Sunday. And so is Alex Highsmith, who's also on the injury report. So that's good, especially for TJ Watt. They need him to wreak havoc on a play-in and play-out basis in order to have a real chance to win games. So, yes, TJ Watt practiced. Alex Highsmith practiced. I believe Joe Hayden, who's been out for a month with some kind of injury, he practiced. So hopefully he'll be able to play on Sunday. So that should bode well for the Steelers defense. And it's going to be a tough order. A tall order, I should say, against Tennessee. Derrick Henry might not be in there, but there's still a top 5 rushing offense, even without Derrick Henry. So, yeah, to have your defense as as close to full strength as possible for that game is gonna be paramount to winning. So, let's see what else we have here. Ryan O'Toole says he wants to see, as far as the final month, he wants to see Ben continue to move up the record books. Yeah, that'd be great. He's already solidified himself among the best of all time, both statistically and in terms of wins, losses, and in terms of Super Bowl success. I mean, if he would win a 3rd Super Bowl before he retires, which seems like a stretch at this point, he'd be in rarefied air. So the fact that he has 2, he's still in select company. So, yeah, over the final month, let's see Ben sort of move up the record books. And that would be something, and I said this when I recorded my wish list for the Steelers down the stretch. It'd be nice to see the big guy get hot one final time over the last 4 games and really put on an offensive show. And it might be a lot to ask for a 39-year-old, especially somebody who's struggled as much as Roethlisberger has over the past year or so. But wouldn't it be nice if he got as hot for a one month stretch as he's shown at the end of games in LA and against the Vikings last week? If he got that hot game in and game out and stayed that way for the final month of his career, that would be great. And would probably certainly boost the Steelers' chances of making the playoffs. So let's hope for that for Big Ben. And Evan Gallus says just about every team the Steelers needed to lose has lost. They need the Bengals, Browns, or Ravens to lose this week. And I think they all have a decent chance of losing. If you're simply talking about the chances of winning the AFC North, the Bengals play the Broncos. As I said earlier, the Browns play the Raiders. The Raiders stink, but the Browns are dealing with COVID. And, of course, the Ravens are playing the Packers. So if all 3 teams lose and the Steelers win, well, let's see, they would be 7-7, the Bengals and the Browns. The Ravens would be 8-6. So Pittsburgh would be in second place. Can you imagine that? Going from last place to second place? And who knows what that would do to their odds of making the playoffs with 3 games left. So, but I'd take a couple of losses from those 3 teams this week. Obviously, I want the Ravens to lose. I'm actually counting on that since they're playing the Packers. But, if the Bengals lost or if the Browns lost and the other team won, well, I'd still feel pretty good. But here's the thing. If you're just simply talking about wild card, no matter what happens this week, as far as the Browns and the Bengals are concerned, if the Steelers win, they're going to boost their playoff odds. They just are, because whether it's the Browns or the Raiders that lose, it's going to help the Steelers. Whether it's the Bengals or the Broncos that lose, it's going to help the Steelers in terms of the wild card spot. So, but Pittsburgh has to take care of business themselves and find a way to beat the Titans, which is not going to be easy, even without Derrick Henry. So, but I have a good feeling about this week's game. I said that before, but I really do have a good feeling about Sunday against the Titans. And this one is from Christopher 11, and he says, or he asks, "Hey Tony, how great is it to see a Steelers cornerback get multiple picks in the same game? Shades of Woodson." I don't know about Woodson, but maybe Deshae Townsend. But it was a good game by he's talking about Killer Witherspoon against the Vikings, and that certainly, despite everybody being angry at him and the rest of the defense, celebrating that interception, at least the first one when it was 29-7, that did spark a comeback. And Witherspoon, despite being basically persona non grata his entire time here after Pittsburgh traded for him near the end of training camp, he's really come on in the last few weeks, and he's now the starter in place of James Pierre. So if Joe Hayden can come back this week, and you have your top three corners being Hayden, Witherspoon, and Cam Sutton, well, that would I think that would strengthen the secondary. So I don't know if it's shades of Woodson, but it's definitely encouraging to see a guy of that pedigree. And Witherspoon was a former third round pick not that long ago. It's great to see him coming on, and maybe he can be an X factor for the defense down the stretch. Kathy Ford asks, "Did Ben practice today?" I don't know, but he wasn't on the injury report, so whether he practiced or not, I don't think it matters. He's going to play on Sunday. And Jerry Cherry Band, who does a great job providing us with music for our podcasts. He's the band you always hear in and out of our each and every one of our podcasts on the audio side. And he says, "It seems obvious we've been slumming without Hayden." Yeah, Hayden's their best cornerback, and he's been their best cornerback since he's been here. Even though he's 32, 33 years old now, he's still their best cornerback. That's both a compliment to him and an indictment to their chances of their abilities to develop corners. But yeah, having Joe Hayden back, assuming he comes back this Sunday, that's going to be a huge boost for that secondary. Evan Gullis says, "I just want to win games and make the playoffs." I agree with you there, Evan. I certainly want that too. Christopher 11 says of the three quarterback Super Bowl, or I'm sorry, the three Super Bowl quarterback club, only four other quarterbacks have three or more rings, elite club. And he's talking about Tom Brady, Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana, and who's the other one? Gosh. I can't believe I drew a blank on the fourth one, but yeah, it's rarefied air to win three Super Bowl rings. And I don't know if Ben's going to get there. It doesn't look like he's going to get there, but to even have a chance at that is pretty special and pretty rare for an NFL quarterback. So Ben's already in select company, even without being a three-time Super Bowl winner. And Brian Brown says, "I didn't realize Jamar Jones, he was the darling of this past preseason, the outside linebacker. I didn't realize he was signed by the Rams. No wonder the Steelers have no depth. Are other teams rated our practice squad?" Well, that's the danger of keeping players on a practice squad. Even you can't keep everybody. Sometimes you got to risk exposing these guys to the practice squad and hope they make it through the season. But I mean, you can't fault a player like Jones for if he's picked up by a team and put on their 53-man roster. That's everybody's dream. That's every young player's dream. So I certainly don't fault him for that. But even the Steelers, I mean, what can you do? There's only so many players you can put on the 53-man roster, and sometimes you have to sacrifice or at least expose a good player to the possibilities of being up on waivers. All right, what else we have here? And this is from Brian Brown, who's been an active member tonight. Do you think the Steelers will have success throwing the ball? Tennessee doesn't have the greatest pass defense. I mean, the way things have been going with them in 2021, I think eventually they'll have success as the game goes on. Do I anticipate them having success right from the very beginning? No, because that's been their MO all year, is starting off slow on offense and then picking it up down the stretch. But you're right. Tennessee doesn't have a great defense. So, maybe this is the game that Pittsburgh's offense starts out hot. And when was the last time that happened? Has it happened at all this year? I can't think of one game where they've really started out hot. I think to me that would help. It would solve so many problems for them if they started out hot on offense. It would help the defense. It would help Big Ben's confidence, maybe even Matt Canada's confidence. So that's something we haven't seen yet this year, is a hot start. Maybe we'll have that on Sunday against a very good Titans team. And this one is from Steeler Chick 46, who asks, who will have more yards Sunday, Najee Harris on the ground or Deontay Johnson receiving? I'm going to go with Deontay Johnson receiving because, as Brian just mentioned, the Titans don't have the greatest secondary. And, it just seems to me like this offense really isn't going to click over the final month unless it's in Ben Roethlisberger's hands. And if it's in his hands, then he's going to want to call more passing than he is running. So I'm going to go with Deontay Johnson. And Steeler Chick 46 says, starting out slow on offense equals bad offensive planning. That's right. That's what I said the other day. I think that's what I said last Friday. Why is it, you have all week the game plan. Why is it that week in and week out, your game plan doesn't work? And by the end of the game, you have to have Roethlisberger sort of improvising and taking over the offense, So clearly, whatever game planning they're doing, Matt Canada is doing, it's just not working. And it shouldn't be, each and every week, the offense shouldn't start off as slow as it does. So to me, that's an indictment of him. And one of the reasons why he was brought in here is to make the offense less predictable, make it more potent. And yet we've seen the exact opposite of that with Matt Canada. So there you go. Clarence Washington says, I expect Najee Harris to have a big game. Wouldn't that be something? And wouldn't it be something if he had not just a big game, but a big run? We haven't seen. That's one thing we haven't seen from him yet, is one of those 60, 70-yard runs. Now, granted, he doesn't really have that kind of speed, and you rarely saw that from Le'Veon Bell during his heyday. But still, it would be nice to see him put out have a big run in the game. I think that would be a treat for the fans. Evan Gullis asks, how long is Kevin Dotson out? Well, he's still on IR, and last I heard, he doesn't seem like he's close to coming back. So I'm guessing he'll be out at least another couple weeks. and there's only 4 games left. So, those high ankle sprains, which is what he suffered, those are not easy to come back from in a short time span. So, yeah, I don't expect Dotson to be back probably until the last couple games, if that. Christopher 11 says of the Vikings, the performance against the Vikings last Thursday night, something was off kilter the first half of the Minnesota game. Our defense looked so flat. Hopefully they got rid of all their cobwebs and we can get on a consistent roll. Yeah, well, a lot of that, has to do with personnel. And I've said this on each and every one of my shows. And, if you don't have Stephon Tuitt, if you don't have Tyson Alualu on the line alongside Cam Hayward, well, you better have some magnificent youngster waiting in the wings to take their place. And clearly they don't have that right now. And Isaiah Buggs, Carlos Davis, Henry Mondeau, Isaiah Loudermilk, they don't have that kind of guy. Chris Wormley, who's a solid veteran. He's starting now and because of the injuries, but he's not a dynamic player. Whereas those guys, especially Tuitt, when he is healthy and motivated and on a roll, those guys are all pro players, and it's hard to replace those kind of guys and have their backups match them in the performance department. Brian Brown says, I hope the Steelers try to block some more kicks. That's gone well this season, if nothing else. That's true. Miles Killebrew, he's not a great defensive back, even though he's a defensive back by trade. He's a special teams demon. And, Jordan Dangerfield was that for them as a safety for a number of years, but it's clear that Killebrew is a step above. He's a major improvement in the special teams specialist department, and we've seen them utilize Killebrew in the how many block punts did he had? At least 2. So yeah, that's definitely a wild card for them during games. Is especially with this offense struggling the way it has all year. We saw it against the Bills, how Killebrew blocked the punt, and that proved to be the difference in the game. We saw it against the Chargers a number of weeks ago, where his fourth quarter blocked punt helped get them get back in the game and actually take the lead at the end before surrendering the lead. So it's been a great year in that regard. I mean, Killebrew might be their best free agent pickup. So maybe he has a couple more in them this year. And Steeler Chick 46 says the Steelers looked exhausted at the beginning of the Minnesota game. Well, I mean, it's not easy to play on 4 days rest after an emotional game, a physical game against the hated Ravens, your biggest rival. But it is what it is. Every NFL team has to go through it. And it was unfortunate that Pittsburgh's Thursday night game came after such a high profile and intense divisional matchup, but it is what it is. And this is from Clarence Washington. He asked, why do they trust or use Ray McLeod so much and have Anthony Miller on the practice squad when he gets a chance? The one play he had a chance, he looked good. I don't know. I mean, Ray's been around for a while. The thing about practice squad players and backups and rarely used players is, just because they flash once or twice when they get a chance, it doesn't mean they necessarily have what it takes to do the job on a regular basis. I think Ray's a decent enough return specialist, and he's, average at receiver. Anthony Miller might have more talent there, so perhaps that's something that they could utilize him, a role they can utilize him in the near future. But I don't think their problems are that great at receiver, even though they're missing Juju. I think they have talent there in Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson and James Washington. I think it's just a matter of finding something in the offense that actually works. And so far through 13 games, they haven't been able to find a rhythm on offense. And I don't think one receiver is going to help that at all, especially somebody who's on the practice squad. And Brian Brown asks, what's the deal with Ebron? Well, he had surgery. I think it was on his knee. I think he might be out for the rest of the year, but he definitely had major surgery recently. That's why we haven't seen him. So that's the deal with Eric Ebron. Steelers Chick 46 says we need to play Renegade at the start of the game. Maybe that will help. Well, some people think that hurts them when they play it at any point in the game. But I'm up for anything at this point. 6-1 with a month to go. You're in the thick of the playoff race, even though it doesn't feel like it. Whatever it takes. That's what I say. Christopher 11 says Steelers should be well rested after mini bye week. No excuses. Well, I mean, you could use some excuses, and that's that they're not that great. They're not that great of a team. That could be one excuse. And Tennessee's awfully good. But I do look for them to come out firing on I don't say all cylinders, but I think they should come out pretty intense on Sunday. It's going to be Ben Roethlisberger's second to last home game, presumably. So maybe that'll prove to be motivation enough to get off to a hot start and maybe coast to an easy win. We'll see. The Titans are really, really good. So I'm really looking forward to Sunday's game, even though I might not be able to see it because of work. I'm still looking forward to the result. And this one is from Montcus S. Tony, how much money would you need to be paid to take the field for the Steelers for a game? Is $500K enough to get you out there for a game? $500,000. Monca S, with my debt, I'd take maybe a half that, maybe even a quarter of that to go out there and play a game. Would I be putting my life at risk? Maybe, but I would just use the sidelines as my friend. Pay me six figures, and I'll go out there. Even at the age of 49, I don't care. It would really, as long as I could pay off my debt, I'd be happy. So thank you for that. That's pretty cool. All right. Christopher 11. Just like Cowher did in 2005, take one game at a time and treat each like a single elimination. That proved to be the winning formula. Yeah, although that team also proved to be much more talented. I mean, it was one of the, that the core of that team won 2 Super Bowls and made it to 3 in 6 years. Or else I'm not so sure that this Steelers team is that talented. I'm almost positive it isn't. People forget how good that 05 team actually was. They talk about them going from 7-5 and going on an 8-game winning streak, but the year before they were 15-1 in the regular season, and then that year 05 they were 7-2 at one point before injuries really caught up to them, and that's how they lost 3 games in a row. That was a damn good Steelers team, whereas this team is on its best day okay. So, but it would be nice. I mean, Cowher had that us against the world thing going for the 05 team, and he also did it in 95. They were 3-4. They had just lost to the Jaguars, and then they got blown out at home by the Bengals on Thursday Night Football. ironically enough. They were 3-4, and he said this is a 9-game season, and they actually won all but one game down the stretch, and that was a meaningless game. And Yancey Thigpen had the game-winning touchdown in his mitts with seconds left, and he dropped it, and it didn't really matter. They had the second seed sewn up, so it didn't cost them anything. But then they went on a roll and all the way to the Super Bowl before losing. So he turned it into a 9-game season that year. In 2005, he did the whole the playoffs for now thing, and it worked. So, yeah. But the key in both cases is Cowher had superior teams in terms of talent than this 2021 edition. So, all right. On that note, I think I've rambled on long enough, and I've answered your questions, and I'm happy with our participation. I think I'm falling asleep. It's 10:16. I got to get up for work tomorrow. I had a fun time talking with you guys tonight, and I hope it's a great weekend, and I hope the Steelers give us something great to talk about next week in the form of a exciting win over the Titans. I predicted, you'll see this in our prediction article, I predicted they're going to win in overtime. So hold me to it. But I'll talk to you again on Monday on The Hangover with Brian and Shannon White. Until then, have a great weekend and go Steelers. Good night, everybody.